The Morning Star limped into the salvage station's docking bay with all the grace of a wounded bird. Hyan watched the fuel gauge drop to critical levels as he maneuvered his ship into position. The docking clamps grabbed hold with a metallic screech that made him wince. He would need to fix that too, but first he needed parts, and parts required credits he did not have. The station orbited a massive gas giant, its rings glowing orange in the distant sun's light. Velkari ran this station, and they ran it like everything else in their society, cold, efficient, and focused entirely on profit. Hyan had dealt with them before. They were not cruel, but they were not kind either. They simply did not care about anything that did not make money. He sealed his jacket and stepped out into the station's main corridor. The air smelled recycled and metallic. Aliens of a dozen species moved through the crowded passages, most of them haulers and traders like himself. Some nodded at him. Others ignored him completely. That was fine with Hyan. He preferred being ignored. Torvik single quotes S shop sat in the lower level of the station, tucked between a fuel depot and a parts warehouse. The Velkari merchant stood behind his counter, his 4 arms sorting through inventory with mechanical precision. His large black eyes fixed on Hyan as he entered. "Human," Torvik said, his voice flat and emotionless. "Your ship sounds worse than last time." "That's why I'm here," Hyan replied. He placed a small credit chip on the counter. "I need a new compression valve and whatever fuel this will buy." Torvik picked up the chip with one hand while continuing to sort parts with the other 3. He scanned it, and his face remained expressionless. "This will buy you the valve and enough fuel to reach the nearest inhabited system. Barely. That's all I need." Torvik gathered the parts and began processing the transaction. Hyan noticed movement through a window that looked out onto a restricted section of the station. He saw rows of what looked like stasis pods, all marked with red warning symbols. "What's that area?" Hyan asked, pointing. Torvik did not even look up. "Biological salvage. Defective units. Not your concern." But Hyan was already walking toward the window, curiosity pulling at him. He could see shapes inside the pods, living beings held in suspended animation. "What do you mean, defective?" "Damaged goods," Torvik explained, finally looking up. "Beings that cannot work, cannot be sold, cannot serve any economic purpose. Some are injured. Some are sick. Some are from species with no trade value. They cost us credits to maintain, so we hold them until we can afford to dispose of them properly." Something cold settled in Hyan's stomach. "Dispose of them?" "Space them in the nebula. It is the cheapest method." Torvik said this as casually as he might discuss throwing out spoiled food. "Why do you care?" "They are not human." Hyan's jaw tightened. "Can I see them?" Torvik's eyes narrowed slightly, the first real emotion Hyan had seen from him. "Why would you want to?" "Just curious." The Velkari studied him for a long moment, then shrugged with 2 of his 4 shoulders. "Follow me, but do not touch anything, and do not expect me to sell you any of them. They are worthless." The restricted section was cold and dimly lit. Row after row of stasis pods lined the walls, each one containing a being from somewhere in the galaxy. Hyan walked slowly past them, looking at each face. A reptilian creature missing both arms. An insectoid being with a cracked carapace. A small, furry mammal whose legs were twisted and broken. Then he saw her. A young female from a species he recognized as Silvari. Her skin should have glowed with soft bioluminescence, but it was dark and lifeless. Among her people, that glow was everything. Status, health, beauty. Without it, she was nothing. Her file displayed on the pod screen. Gina, age equivalent to human 22. Classified as defective. Scheduled for disposal in 6 cycles. 3 pods down, he found a male Kryn warrior. The Kryn were known across the galaxy for their strength and combat prowess. This one, named Tayo according to his file, had a badly healed leg injury. The notes indicated he could no longer fight. In Kryn society, it made him worse than dead. It made him shameful. The third one caught his attention because she was awake. Her eyes followed him through the transparent pod surface. She was Quellen, a species known for their engineering skills and orderly minds. This female Mina had notes in her file that described her thought patterns as chaotic and unpredictable. The corporations that employed Quellen engineers had rejected her. She had been sitting in this pod for 3 months, conscious but unable to move or speak. "These 3, Ion said quietly. "What would it cost to take them?" Torvik made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Take them? Human, you cannot afford to feed yourself. How will you feed 3 defective aliens? How much?" Ion repeated. "Nothing," Torvik said, and now he definitely sounded amused. "I will give them to you for free. You will be doing us a favor. Waste disposal costs money. If you take them, we save credits." Ion looked at the 3 pods again. Gina, sleeping and dreaming of whatever Silvari dreamed. Tayo, unconscious and broken. Mina, aware and watching him with desperate eyes. 3 beings that an entire galaxy had decided were not worth keeping alive. "I'll take them," he said. Torvik's arms moved in a gesture of disbelief. "You are serious? Human, they are worthless. The Silvari cannot glow. The Kryn cannot fight. The Quellen cannot think properly. What will you do with them?" Ion met the Valkyrie's black eyes. "I'll figure something out." 20 minutes later, loading drones were moving the 3 stasis pods into the Morning Star's cargo bay. Ion strapped them down carefully, making sure they were secure for the journey. His ship was not designed to carry passengers, especially not ones in medical stasis. He would need to monitor their life support constantly. Torvik watched from the docking bay entrance. All 4 arms crossed over his chest. "You are a fool, human. Those 3 will drain your resources and give you nothing in return." Ion finished the last strap and stood up. "Maybe, but they're not garbage, and I'm not going to let them be thrown away like they are." "Sentiment," Torvik said, making it sound like a disease. "That is a very human weakness." "Yeah," Ion said, climbing into his ship. "I guess it is." The Morning Star detached from the station and turned toward deep space. In the cargo bay, 3 beings slept on, unaware that their lives had just changed. Unaware that they were heading toward a world where being broken did not mean being worthless. Unaware that a human who barely had enough credits to keep his own ship flying had just decided they deserved a chance. Ion set the navigation system for New Bazan and settled into his pilot's chair. He had no idea what he was going to do when these 3 woke up. He had no plan, no resources, and no real hope that this would work out. But he had done the right thing. And sometimes that had to be enough. Ion stood in the cargo bay, staring at the 3 stasis pods and trying to convince himself this was not the stupidest thing he had ever done. The Morning Star hummed around him, her engines pushing them through space toward New Bizon. They were 2 days into a 5-day journey, and he could not keep these beings in stasis forever. They needed to wake up. They needed to eat. They needed to understand what was happening. He decided to start with Gina. She seemed the least likely to attack him when confused and frightened. He initiated the wake-up sequence and watched as the pod began to drain its preservation fluid. Her dark skin remained dull and lifeless, lacking the soft glow that her species was known for. The pod hissed open, and she gasped, her eyes flying open in panic. "Easy," Ion said softly, holding up his hands. "You're safe. I'm not going to hurt you." Gina's eyes darted around the cargo bay, taking in her surroundings. She tried to sit up, but her muscles were weak from the stasis. Hyan offered his hand to help her, but she flinched away from him. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice rough and unused. "What do you want from me?" "You're on my ship, the Morning Star. We're heading to a human colony called New Bizen." Hyan kept his distance, giving her space. "The Velkari are going to kill you. I took you instead." She looked down at her arms, at her dark, non-glowing skin. Shame flooded her features. "So you could what? Sell me somewhere else? Use me for labor?" Her voice cracked. "I am defective. I am worth nothing." "That's not true," Hyan said firmly. "And no, I'm not going to sell you or force you to work. When we get to New Bizen, you can decide what you want to do. Stay, leave, whatever. Your choice." Gina stared at him like he was speaking a language she did not understand. "Why would you do this? What do you gain?" "Nothing, I guess. I just thought you deserved better than being thrown into space like garbage." She did not believe him. That much was clear from her expression. But she was too weak to argue, and eventually she let him help her to the small crew quarters he had set up. He gave her water, simple food, and left her alone to process everything. Te, who woke up angry. The moment the stasis pod opened, he tried to lunge at Hyan, but his injured leg gave out, and he collapsed onto the floor of the cargo bay. Hyan jumped back, giving the Kryn warrior space. "Where am I?" Taiho demanded, pulling himself up using the edge of the pod. He stood awkwardly, favoring his good leg. "What have you done to me?" "Saved your life," Hyan replied calmly. "The Velkari are going to kill you. I brought you onto my ship instead." Taiho's face twisted with rage and shame. "You should have left me there. A Kryn who cannot fight is better off dead." He slammed his fist against the pod, the metal ringing with the impact. "I am worthless. I bring dishonor to my people. To myself. Your people aren't here," Hyan said. "And on my ship, you're not worthless. You're a passenger, and when we reach New Bizen, you can figure out what comes next." "Why?" Taiho's voice was bitter. "Why would a human care about a broken Kryn warrior? What do you want from me?" Hyan was starting to realize this would be everyone's first question. "I don't want anything. I just think everyone deserves a chance to live, even if they can't fight or glow, or whatever else their society expects from them." Taiho laughed, but it was a harsh, painful sound. "You are either a fool or a liar. No one helps without wanting something in return." "Then I guess I'm a fool," Hyan said. He showed Taiho to another crew quarter and left him there, angry and confused. Mina's awakening was different. When her pod opened, she was already watching him with bright, alert eyes. She had been conscious in stasis, aware but trapped. Hyan felt a surge of guilt for not waking her first. "Hello," he said gently. "I'm Hyan. You're on my ship. You're safe now." Mina sat up slowly, her movements careful and calculated. She was smaller than most Quellan, her body compact and efficient. Her eyes moved constantly, taking in every detail of the cargo bay, analyzing, processing, thinking. "Safe," she repeated, testing the word. "That is a relative term. Safe compared to spacing, yes. Safe in absolute terms, no data to confirm." "I'm not going to hurt you," Hyan assured her. "Insufficient sample size to verify claim," Mina replied. Her speech pattern was odd, jumping from topic to topic. "Ship design is outdated, but functional. Compression valve in engine 3 is failing. You replaced it recently, but installed it backwards. 43% efficiency loss. Why did the Velkari give me to you?" Hyan blinked at the rapid-fire assessment. "They said you were defective, that your thinking was too chaotic." "Chaotic," Mina said, and something like pain crossed her face. Yes, that is what they said. Quellan minds should be orderly, predictable, linear. Mine is not. Therefore, worthless. Therefore, disposal. She stood up from the pod, steadier than the others had been. She walked a circle around Hyon, studying him from every angle. You took 3 worthless beings onto your ship. This is economically inefficient, logically questionable, but emotionally consistent with human behavior patterns. You feel compassion. Strange. Is it? Hyon asked. For my people, yes. For Velkari, yes. For most species I have encountered, yes. She tilted her head. But humans are known for this. Helping when it makes no sense. Caring when it costs them. Illogical, but documented. Over the next 3 days, the dynamics on the Morning Star slowly shifted. Gina stayed mostly in her quarters, coming out only to eat. She spoke little and avoided mirrors and reflective surfaces. The shame of her non-glowing skin sat on her shoulders like a physical weight. Taiho was restless and angry. He paced the small common area, his limp pronounced, but his pride refusing to let him show weakness. He challenged Hyon constantly, questioning his motives. Waiting for the trap to spring. Mina, however, was everywhere. She explored every inch of the ship, her mind cataloging and analyzing. On the second day, she appeared in the cockpit while Hyon was checking their course. Your navigation system is going to fail, she announced. Hyon looked up from his controls. What? The processing core has microfractures. Thermal expansion inconsistent. 47 hours until critical failure. Maybe less. We will be lost in space. Can you fix it? Hyon asked, hope sparking in his chest. Mina's eyes lit up. No one has asked me that in 3 years. They only told me I was wrong, broken, thinking incorrectly. She moved to the navigation console, her fingers flying over the controls. Yes, I can fix it, but not the standard way. Need to reroute through secondary systems. Use the environmental controls as a processing backup. Unconventional, chaotic, but it will work. Do it, Hyon said. For the next 6 hours, Mina worked. Hyon watched as she tore apart his navigation system and rebuilt it in a way that should not have worked. She connected systems that were never meant to talk to each other. She wrote code that broke every standard protocol. And when she was done, the navigation system hummed to life, more stable than it had been in years. It works, Hyon said, amazed. Of course it works, Mina replied, but there was pride in her voice. Real pride, maybe for the first time in years. My thinking is different. Not wrong. Just different. That evening, Hyon gathered all 3 of them in the common area. He had prepared a meal from his limited supplies. Nothing fancy, but hot and filling. They sat in awkward silence at first. I want to tell you something, Hyon began. On Earth, humans used to think certain people were worthless too. People who looked different, or thought different, or couldn't do what society expected. We threw them away, locked them up, treated them terribly. Gina looked up from her plate, listening despite herself. But we learned, Hyon continued. We learned that different doesn't mean worthless. That everyone has value, even if it's not obvious at first. Some of our greatest minds were people society tried to throw away. Easy words, Taiho muttered. Harder to believe. I know, Hyon acknowledged. But I've got 5 more days to prove it to you. Mina had stopped eating, her mind working. New Bison. What kind of place is it? It's a colony world. Small, mostly agricultural. People there don't care much about what you were before. They care about what you contribute now. And if we contribute nothing? Gina asked quietly. Then you still get to live there, Hyon said. Because being alive is enough. You don't have to earn the right to exist. The three of them absorbed this in silence. Hyan could see the doubt in their faces, the disbelief. They had spent too long being told they were worthless to accept anything different easily. But they had time. And sometimes, time was all you needed. The morning star broke through New Bison's atmosphere just after dawn. Hyan watched his three passengers gather at the viewport, seeing their first glimpse of their new home. The colony spread out below them, fields of green and gold, small clusters of buildings, irrigation channels that caught the morning light like silver threads. "It's so open," Gina whispered. She had spent most of her life on space stations and ships. Actual sky, actual land, these were almost alien to her. Taiho said nothing, but his hand pressed against the viewport, fingers spread wide. Hyan noticed the warrior's expression had softened. Just slightly, Mina was analyzing everything, as usual. Population approximately 15,000. Mixed species settlement. Agricultural base with secondary manufacturing. Efficient land use. Interesting water distribution system. Are those solar farms or something else? Solar farms, Hyan confirmed, bringing the ship down toward the main landing pad. We generate most of our power from the sun and wind. The colony tries to be self-sufficient. The landing was smooth, better than usual thanks to Mina's repairs. As the engines powered down, Hyan turned to his passengers. "Listen, I know you're nervous, but my sister runs a community center here. She's good people. She'll help you get settled." "And then what?" Taiho asked. "What do you expect from us?" "Nothing," Hyan said for what felt like the 100th time. "You're free to do whatever you want. Stay, leave, work, rest. Your choice." The landing pad was small, but well maintained. As they descended the ramp, Hyan saw his sister waiting for them. Hana was shorter than him, with her hair tied back and a warm smile on her face. When she saw the three aliens following her brother, her smile grew even wider. "Hyan!" She called out, rushing forward to hug him. "You didn't tell me you were bringing guests." "It was a last-minute decision," Hyan admitted. He turned to the others. "This is my sister, Hana. Hana, this is Gina, Taiho, and Mina." Hana bowed slightly, a gesture of respect. "Welcome to New Bison. I hope you'll think of this as home." Gina looked uncomfortable with the warmth. Taiho remained guarded. But Mina tilted her head, curious. "Why would you welcome us? You do not know us. We could be dangerous." "Could be," Hana agreed cheerfully. "But my brother wouldn't have brought you here if you were. Come on, let me show you the community center. We've got rooms set up, and I bet you're all hungry for real food." The community center was a low, wide building near the center of the settlement. Inside, it was bustling with activity. Human children ran through the corridors, laughing. An elderly alien that Hyan did not recognize sat in a corner, teaching a small class. The smell of cooking food drifted from a large kitchen. "We serve meals 3 times a day," Hannah explained as she led them through. "Free for anyone who needs it. We've got sleeping quarters for folks between homes. Classes in the afternoon. Medical clinic in the East Wing. Who pays for all this?" Taiho asked suspiciously. "The colony," Hana said simply. "We all contribute what we can. Some people give credits, some give time, some give skills. It works out." She showed them to 3 small but clean rooms on the 2nd floor. Each had a bed, a desk, a window looking out over the fields. Basic but comfortable. "Take some time to settle in," Hana said. "Come down to the dining hall whenever you're ready. No pressure." After she left, the 3 of them stood in the hallway, unsure what to do with this strange new freedom. "I do not trust this," Taiho said finally. "It is too good. There must be a cost we are not seeing. Maybe, Gina said quietly. Or maybe humans really are this strange. Mina was already in her room, examining everything with intense focus. Room dimensions sufficient. Window view optimal for morning light. Structural integrity of building excellent. Colony planning shows high-level organizational thinking. I want to meet whoever designed the water system. Over the next week, patterns emerged. Gina spent most of her time alone in her room, or walking the colony's edges at night when fewer people were around. She avoided mirrors and reflective surfaces. When people greeted her, she ducked her head and hurried away. On the 5th day, Hannah found her sitting by one of the irrigation channels, watching the water flow. She sat down beside the young Silvari without saying anything at first. I met someone once who might interest you, Hannah said eventually. Her name is Sumi. She teaches at our school. I do not wish to meet anyone, Gina replied, not looking up. Sumi is blind, Hannah continued as if Gina had not spoken. Lost her sight in an accident 20 years ago. But she's one of the most popular teachers we have. Kids love her. Adults respect her. She's amazing. Gina finally looked at Hannah. Why? Are you telling me this? Because you think you're worthless without your glow. But Sumi teaches without her sight. She's valued for who she is, not what she can or cannot do. It is not the same, Gina said, turning away again. No, Hannah agreed. It's not. But maybe you should meet her anyway. Tomorrow, 2 in the afternoon, at the school. Think about it. Tai-Ho was restless. He walked the colony constantly, his limp pronounced but his pace relentless. He watched the human security teams train, his face twisted with longing and shame. He could not fight anymore. He could not be what he was raised to be. Hyen introduced him to Jiho on the 8th day. The human veteran was in his 40s, missing his left leg below the knee. He walked with a prosthetic that clicked softly with each step. He was also the head of the colony's emergency response team. Hyen says you're Kryn, Jiho said, shaking Tai-Ho's hand firmly. I've always respected your people. Great warriors. I am not a warrior, Tai-Ho said bitterly. Not anymore. Jiho glanced at Tai-Ho's leg. Bad injury? It does not heal properly. I cannot run, cannot fight. I am useless. Useless? Jiho laughed. Come with me. I want to show you something. He led Tai-Ho to the emergency response training ground. A dozen humans were running drills, responding to simulated disasters. Jiho stood at the center, calling out orders, directing the teams with precision and authority. I lost my leg in a mining accident, Jiho explained. Thought my life was over. Thought I was worthless. But then I realized something. Being a good leader is not about being the strongest or the fastest. It is about thinking clearly under pressure. It is about knowing your team's strengths. It is about making the right call when everything is chaos. He pointed to his teams. Half of these people are stronger than me, faster than me. But they follow my orders because I am good at strategy. Because I know how to keep them alive. Your leg might be broken, Tai-Ho, but is your mind broken? Tai-Ho stared at him. No, then you are not useless. You are just doing the wrong job. Mina thrived. Within 3 days, she had volunteered at the colony's engineering department. Within 5 days, she had identified 17 inefficiencies in their power distribution system. Within a week, she had redesigned their water purification process and increased output by 30%. The head engineer, an older human named Kang Su, watched her work with amazement. Where did you learn to think like this? He asked. I do not know, Mina admitted. My people said I think wrong, chaotic, unpredictable. They tried to fix me but could not. So they threw me away. Well, loss is our gain, Kang Su said. I have never seen anyone solve problems the way you do. You see connections the rest of us miss, That is not wrong. That is brilliant. For the first time in her life, Mina felt valued. She worked 16 hours a day, not because anyone forced her, but because she loved it. Her mind, which had been called broken and defective, was finally being celebrated. On the 10th day, everything changed. A message came through on the colony's communication system. A Velkari corporate fleet was approaching New Bizan. They were demanding the return of 3 pieces of biological salvage that had been taken without proper payment. Hyan listened to the message with growing dread. Hannah stood beside him, her face grim. "They are coming for them," Hyan said quietly. "Can they do that legally?" Hannah asked. "Under Velkari law, maybe." They classified Gina, Taiho, and Mina as salvage, not people. Property laws might give them the right to reclaim them. "That is insane. That is how the galaxy works," Hyan said bitterly. "Corporations decide what has value. Everything else is just property." News of the approaching fleet spread quickly through the colony. That evening, Hyan found all 3 of his passengers waiting for him in the community center. "We heard," Gina said. Her voice was calm, but her hands shook. "The Velkari are coming for us." "I will not go back," Taiho said, his hand on the knife he had started carrying. "I would rather die." "No one is dying," Hyan said firmly. "And no one is going back to be thrown away like garbage." "What choice do we have?" Gina asked. "We are worthless. The Velkari have ships and weapons. Your colony is small. If they demand, U.S. back, what can you do?" Mina had been quiet, but now she spoke. "Calculate the variables. Velkari have legal claim under their law. They have superior military force. They have economic leverage. We have insufficient resources to resist. Logical conclusion. We lose." "Maybe," Hannah said, stepping forward. "But New Bizan has something the Velkari don't value. We have people who care about what's right, not just what's profitable. And sometimes that's enough." The colony council called an emergency meeting. The question was simple. Did they hand over 3 beings to avoid conflict, or did they stand on principle and risk everything? The debate lasted hours. But in the end, the vote was unanimous. New Bizan would not surrender anyone who did not want to go. Now, they just had to figure out how to make that stand without getting destroyed. The Velkari ships appeared in orbit 2 days later, 3 sleek vessels that made New Bizan's small defense fleet look like toys. Hyan stood in the colony's command center with Hannah, a colony administrator, and several council members. On the main screen, a Volkari officer stared at them with cold, black eyes. "I am Commander Savrik of the Velkari Corporate Security Force," the alien said. His voice was flat, emotionless. "You are harboring stolen property. 3 biological salvage units taken from Station 17 without proper payment or transfer documentation. Return them immediately." The colony administrator, a tough woman named Director Park, leaned forward. "Those are not property. They are living, sentient beings. We do not recognize your classification of them as salvage." "Your recognition is irrelevant," Savrik replied. "Under Velkari commercial law, which governs that sector of space, they were legally classified as defective biological units. They belong to the station. You have 24 hours to return them, or we will take them by force." The screen went dark. In the silence that followed, everyone turned to look at Hyan. "This is my fault," he said quietly. "I took them. I brought them here. I will turn myself over, and maybe they will leave the colony alone." "Absolutely not," Hannah said firmly. "This is not about you. This is about whether we let corporations decide who gets to be a person and who does not." "She is right," Director Park agreed. "But we need a plan. We cannot fight them militarily. 3 ships against our entire defense would be a massacre. Tai-Ho stepped forward from where he had been standing quietly in the corner. Then do not fight them militarily. Fight them with strategy. Everyone looked at the Kryn warrior. Over the past 2 weeks, he had been training with Jiho's emergency response teams. His limp was still pronounced, but his confidence had grown. "What do you mean?" Director Park asked. "Valkyrie value profit above else," Tai-Ho explained. "They are here because they believe they have a legal claim. But what if that claim costs them more than they can afford to lose?" Mina's eyes lit up. She had been sitting at a computer terminal, working as always. Economic pressure. Make the cost of retrieval exceed the value of the assets. Basic cost-benefit analysis. "But how?" Hannah asked. "We are a small agricultural colony. We have nothing they want." "No," Mina said, her fingers flying across the keyboard. "But we have something they fear. Information." She pulled up data on the main screen. Charts, sensor readings, chemical analyses. While I was repairing systems on the Morningstar, I accessed the ship's long-range sensors. Passive collection, only nothing active. But I noticed something interesting in the data from the nebula near Station 17. The room leaned in, everyone trying to understand the complex readouts. "Toxic waste," Mina continued. "Industrial byproducts dumped illegally into the nebula. The chemical signature matches Valkyrie manufacturing processes. Station 17 has been disposing of hazardous materials in violation of Galactic Council environmental treaties for at least 5 years." Director Park's eyes widened. "If this went public?" "Massive fines," Mina said. "Criminal charges against station management. Possible shutdown of operations. The station generates 3 billion credits annually in profit. Losing that would be catastrophic for the corporation." "That is blackmail," one of the council members said, sounding uncomfortable. "No," Tai-Ho said firmly. "That is leverage. They are threatening to take 3 innocent beings by force. We are showing them that their illegal actions have consequences." Hyen looked at Gina, who had been silent throughout the discussion. "What do you think?" Gina had changed over the past 2 weeks. She still struggled with her lack of bioluminescence, but Sumi had taken her under her wing. The blind teacher had shown Gina that value came from within, not from external appearances. Gina was starting to believe it. "I think," Gina said slowly, "that I am tired of being treated like I am worthless. I think I deserve to live here if I choose. I think we all do." "Then we use this information," Director Park decided. "But carefully. We are not trying to destroy them. We are trying to force them to recognize your personhood." The next morning, Commander Savrick's shuttle landed at the colony's main pad. He came with 4 armed guards, all carrying weapons that could level buildings. Hyen met him with Director Park, Hana, and the 3 former salvage units. Savrick's eyes fixed on Gina, Tai-Ho. "And Mina, the property. Good. Load them onto my shuttle, and this matter is concluded. They are not going anywhere." Director Park said calmly, "Then you are in violation of Valkyrie commercial law. We will take them by force. And you are in violation of Galactic Council Environmental Protection Act, Section 12, Subsection 7, Mina said, stepping forward. She held up a data pad. Illegal dumping of industrial waste into protected nebula zones. 5 years of evidence. Chemical signatures. Sensor data. Testimony from multiple sources. Savrick's face remained emotionless, but Hyen saw his hands tighten. "That information is classified." "It was," Mina agreed. "But if you attempt to take us by force, it becomes very public. I have already prepared packets for every major news network, every Galactic Council representative, and every environmental advocacy group in known space. One command from me, and it all goes out. That is extortion." "No," Tai-Ho said, his voice hard. "That is justice. You are going to kill us because we did not fit your definition of valuable. You are going to dump us like you dump your toxic waste. But we are not garbage. We are people, and we have the right to choose our own lives. Savrik studied them for a long moment. His tactical mind was clearly calculating costs and benefits. 3 salvage units worth nothing versus potential fines and criminal charges worth billions. These 3 were classified as defective, he said finally. They have no economic value. Exactly, Director Park agreed. So why do you want them back? They cost you money to dispose of. We took that burden from you. Consider it a favor. It is about precedent, Savrik said. If we allow you to take classified property without payment, others will do the same. Then reclassify them, Hana suggested. Not as property, as free beings. Update your database. Show that you made an error in classification. Save face, avoid the scandal, and everyone moves on. Savrik's fingers drummed against his side, a rare show of emotion. The calculation was happening behind those black eyes. Finally, he spoke. I will need to consult with station management. Take your time, Director Park said. But know that the longer this takes, the more nervous I get. And when I get nervous, my finger hovers over the send button. The Velkari commander returned to his shuttle. For 6 hours, they waited. Hyan sat with Gina, Tayo, and Mina in the community center, none of them speaking much. The entire colony held its breath. Finally, the communication came through. Savrik's face appeared on the screen, as emotionless as ever. Station 17 has reviewed the situation. We have determined that the 3 biological units in question were misclassified. They are not salvage. They are free beings with full personhood rights under Galactic Council law. Our database has been updated accordingly. Relief flooded through the room, but Savrik was not finished. However, I want to be clear. This precedent will not stand forever. We have accepted this outcome because the economic cost of fighting it exceeds the value of the assets. But corporations are adapting. They will find new ways to classify beings, new legal frameworks to justify their actions. You have won this battle, but the war continues. We understand, Director Park said. But today, 3 people get to stay free. That is enough. Savrik's ships departed orbit an hour later. As they watched the vessels disappear into faster-than-light travel, Hyan turned to his 3 friends. You are officially free, he said, recognized by Galactic Council law. No one can claim you as property anymore. Gina was crying, tears running down her dark, non-glowing cheeks. Taiho stood tall, his hand no longer on his knife. Mina was smiling, a rare and beautiful expression. What do we do now? Gina asked. Whatever you want, Hana said gently. You can stay here. You can leave. You can travel the galaxy. The choice is yours. That evening, the colony threw a celebration. It was not a big event, just food and music and people gathering in the community center. But for Gina, Taiho, and Mina, it was everything. Jina stood with Sumi, watching the children play. The blind teacher put a hand on her shoulder. You see, Sumi said softly, your value was never in your glow. It was always in your heart. Taiho was talking with Chiho and the emergency response team, planning new training exercises. His tactical mind was being put to use, and for the first time in years, he felt purpose. Mina was surrounded by engineers, all of them eager to hear her ideas for improving the colony's systems. Her chaotic thinking, once called defective, was now celebrated as genius. Hyan watched them from across the room, feeling something warm settle in his chest. He had not known what would happen when he took 3 worthless beings from that station. He had just known it was the right thing to do. Sometimes, that was all you needed to know. but Sabrik's warning echoed in his mind. This battle was won, but the war continued. Across the galaxy, corporations were still throwing away beings they deemed worthless, still spacing them like garbage, still treating living, thinking creatures as nothing more than defective products. Hyan looked at his ship, the Morning Star, sitting on the landing pad outside. He thought about all those other stations, all those other beings waiting to be disposed of. He had saved 3. But how many more were out there? The answer came to him with crystal clarity. He could not save them all, but he could save some. And some was better than none. He caught Hana's eye across the room and smiled. She smiled back, understanding without words. The work was just beginning. 6 months had changed everything and nothing at all. The Morning Star still looked worn and patched, but her engines ran smoother thanks to Mina's constant improvements. Hyan stood on the bridge, reviewing a message that had just come through on an encrypted channel. Another station. Another group of beings classified as defective. Another plea for help. He was not alone anymore. Behind him stood 5 people who had once been called worthless. Gina checked the medical supplies. Taiho reviewed their approach vectors and security protocols. Mina calibrated the new stasis pods they had installed in the expanded cargo bay. 2 others, Nari and Sungho, recent additions to their crew, prepared the living quarters. How many this time? Gina asked, not looking up from her inventory. 12, Hyan replied. Mixed species. The station wants them gone within 3 days, or they start spacing them. That is more than we have ever taken at once, Taiho observed. Our resources will be stretched thin. We will manage, Mina said confidently. We always do. I have already calculated optimal routes and resource distribution. 92% probability of success. Hyan smiled. 6 months ago, Mina would have given him exact calculations and worried about every variable. Now she understood that sometimes you just had to trust that things would work out. Set course, he said. Let's bring them home. On New Bizen, the community center had expanded. What had been a single building was now a small campus, thanks to funding from several sympathetic colonies and even a few alien governments, who were quietly supportive of what Hana was doing. She stood in the new education wing, watching Gina teach a class of young aliens. And that is why bioluminescence in Silvari is not just biological, Gina explained to her students. It is cultural. My people believe the glow shows health, beauty, status. But when I lost mine, I learned something important. My value was never in my glow. It was in who I chose to be. A small Silvari child, recently arrived and also non-glowing, raised a tentative hand. Do you miss it? The glowing? Gina considered the question honestly. Sometimes. But I do not miss who I was when I thought the glow was all that mattered. I like who I am now better. The child smiled, and Gina felt a familiar warmth in her chest. She was helping others avoid the pain she had endured. That meant everything. After class, she met with Sumi for their weekly tea. The blind teacher had become her closest friend and mentor. They sat in the garden behind the community center, surrounded by plants Gina could not name but had learned to love. You have 17 new students starting next month, Sumi said, sipping her tea. Word is spreading. Families are sending their children here because they know we do not judge based on appearance or ability. That is good, Gina said. Every child who learns they have value is a child who will not be thrown away. You have come far, Sumi observed gently. From the frightened girl who would not look anyone in the eye to a teacher who gives others hope. Gina touched her dark skin, no longer glowing, no longer ashamed. I had good teachers. Across the colony, in the emergency response training facility, Taiho was drilling his team through a complex rescue scenario. His limp was still present, his legs still damaged, but he moved with confidence and authority now. Faster, he called out. In a real emergency, you will not have time to think. You need to act on training and instinct. Again. The team reset and ran the drill once more. Jiho watched from the sidelines, pride evident on his face. When the exercise finished, he approached Taiho. The Galactic Council is putting together a training program, Jiho said. Emergency response coordination for colony worlds. They want instructors. I recommended you. Taiho blinked in surprise. Me? But I am Kryn. My people do not even acknowledge my existence anymore. The Council does not care about your people's opinions, Jiho replied. They care about results. And your methods have reduced emergency response times on New Bizen by 40%. Other colonies want to learn from you. For a moment, Taiho was silent. Then he nodded slowly. I will consider it. But my place is here, with people who saw my value when no one else did. That is what I told them you would say, Jiho said with a grin. So they are bringing the training program here? You teach. Colonies send their people to learn. Everyone wins. Taiho allowed himself a small smile. A year ago, he had been ready to die because he could not fight. Now he was teaching others how to save lives. The irony was not lost on him. In the colony's engineering center, Mina had transformed a small department into a hub of innovation. Her workspace was organized chaos, screens showing a dozen different projects simultaneously. Other engineers had learned to follow her thought processes, even when they seemed random at first. Kong Su, the head engineer, reviewed her latest proposal. You want to redesign the entire colony's power grid using a system that connects environmental controls, water management, and energy production into a single network? Yes, Mina said, already moving on to the next calculation. Current system is inefficient. Isolated components. No communication. My way creates a responsive network. Power flows where needed. Water cools what needs cooling. Everything talks to everything. 47% increase in efficiency. It is brilliant, Kang Su admitted. Also completely unconventional. No colony has ever tried this. That is why it will work, Mina replied. Conventional thinking solves conventional problems. Unconventional problems need unconventional solutions. 3 other colonies had already hired her as a consultant. Her reputation was spreading. The Quellan engineer deemed too chaotic was now one of the most sought-after problem solvers in the sector. But the biggest changes were happening beyond New Bizen. In quiet corners of the galaxy, people were starting to question how their societies classified worth. Families were refusing to abandon their different children. Workers were pushing back against corporate policies that treated people as disposable. A movement was growing, and it had started with 3 beings a human salvage captain decided to save. The morning, Star returned to New Bizen with 12 new passengers. They were scared, confused, and convinced they were worthless. Hyan had heard it all before. He gathered them in the cargo bay and gave them the same speech he had given Gina, Taiho, and Mina 6 months ago. You are not worthless. You are not defective. You are here because someone decided profit was more important than life. But on New Bizen, we believe differently. We believe everyone has value. We believe everyone deserves a chance. We believe being alive is enough. One of the 12, a young male from a species Hyan did not recognize, raised his hand. Why should we believe you? Everyone else has lied to us. Because I am not asking you to believe me, Hyan replied. I am asking you to give it time. Stay for a month. If you still think we are lying, you can leave. But give it a chance. Hannah was waiting at the landing pad with her team. She had done this 17 times now, welcoming the worthless and helping them understand they were not. Each time, it got a little easier. Each time she saw more hope in their eyes. "Welcome home," she said to the 12 newcomers. "Let me show you around." That evening, Hyun sat with his original 3 rescued beings in the community center. They had become more than passengers or refugees. They had become his family. "Another station sent a message today," Hyun said. 23 beings this time. They are offering to give them away for free. "We cannot save them all," Gina said softly. "There are thousands of stations. Millions of beings classified as worthless." "No, we cannot save them all," Hyun agreed. "But we can save some. And every person we save is a person who gets to live, who gets to find their worth, who gets to prove the corporations wrong." "The movement is growing," Taihio added. "I received a message from a Kryn colony yesterday. They are creating a program for injured warriors, teaching them that value extends beyond fighting. They credited your example for the inspiration." "Quellan corporations are fighting over me," Mina said, her voice amused. "They want to hire the engineer they once threw away. I told them no. I like it here. But other Quellan who think differently are finding work now. The corporations are learning that different does not mean defective." "It is not enough," Gina said. "But it is something." "It is more than something," Hana said, joining them with a datapad. "Look at this. In the past 6 months, 5 colonies have adopted new Bizan's model. They are creating sanctuaries for beings other societies discard. 10 more are in planning stages. The Galactic Council is forming a committee to review how personhood is legally defined. How long until real change happens?" Hyun asked. "Years, maybe decades," Hana admitted. "Corporations have power, money, and influence. They will not give up the ability to classify beings as property easily. But every person we save, every colony that joins us, every family that refuses to abandon their different children, all of it adds up." "Ripples," Mina said suddenly. Everyone looked at her. "Drop a stone in water. Creates ripples. Ripples spread outward. Touch shores far away. We are the stone. The galaxy is the water. Ripples are spreading." She was right. Hyun could feel it. 6 months ago, he had made a simple choice to save 3 beings no one else wanted. That choice had created ripples that were now touching lives across the galaxy. A week later, Hyun prepared for another rescue mission. The Morning Star had been upgraded again, could carry more passengers, could travel farther. Gina, Taiho, and Mina all volunteered to come with him. So did Narian, Sungho, and 3 others who had been saved and wanted to help save more. "You do not have to come," Hyun told them. "You have lives here, careers, homes." "New Bizan is our home," Gina replied. "But our purpose is out there, helping others find theirs. We were given away because we were worthless," Taiho added. "Now we choose to give ourselves to this cause because we know our worth." "Logical decision," Mina said. "We have skills. We have experience. We have motivation. Using those assets to help others is optimal resource allocation." Hyun looked at his crew, these people who had been thrown away like garbage, and felt pride swell in his chest. They were not perfect. They were still healing. But they were choosing to use their pain to help others. And that made them heroes in his eyes. The Morning Star lifted off from New Bizan and set course for the next station. The next group of worthless beings, the next chance to prove that every life had value. In his captain's log, Hyun wrote, 6 months ago, I took 3 beings off a salvage station. The Valkyrie called them worthless and gave them away. I took them home. Today, those 3 are teachers, leaders, and innovators. They are proof that worth is not determined by what you can do, but by who you choose to be. We are heading out again. More beings need saving. More ripples need to be created. The corporations keep calling them worthless. We keep proving them wrong. One person at a time. One choice at a time. One ripple at a time. And someday, those ripples will become waves that change the galaxy. The Morning Star jumped to faster-than-light speed, carrying a crew of the formerly worthless toward their next mission. Behind them, New Bison continued to grow. Ahead of them, beings waited in stasis pods, unaware that their lives were about to change. And across the galaxy, the ripples spread, touching shores far from where the stone first dropped. They had been called worthless and given away. But a human had taken them home, and that had made all the difference.